Now, I'm extremely delighted to introduce Mr. Timo Hämäläinen from Finnish Future Fund and think tank Sitra. And Sitra's webpage reads that Timo is a veteran of research and foresight, and his current focus is on competitiveness and growth, new business and innovation policies, and major changes in the economy and society. He also has published books on these topics. He's got wide range work experience from academia, capital market, OECD, and international research projects, and his passion is social innovation and social change. Today, he's going to talk about how the understanding of competitiveness has changed in the past and is also changing right now to be better aligned with the future. Why has Sitra undertaken a foresight work on competitiveness? What were the results, and how has it influenced public discussions in Finland? Dear Timo, great to have you with us virtually. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, and good morning to you all. Let me start immediately because there's not too much time available. I'll start with the big picture. As you all know, we are living through a great transformation at the moment. Various crises follow each other, and our citizens and decision makers are more or less puzzled about what is going on in the world. The complexity and uncertainty have increased considerably, and we need to rethink many ways of doing things in our societies and economies, including competitiveness. These words of VUCA and Bani are probably familiar to you, and I think they describe this current situation very well. I like to look at this current situation from a long-term or long wave or long socioeconomic cycle perspective. I researched these long socioeconomic cycles in my dissertation work, and there it appeared that these long socioeconomic waves have particular characteristics. If you think about the first and second industrial revolutions, they were driven by new key technologies and organizational arrangements, particularly in the business sector. However, the societal institutions and structures were not very quick to follow, and an increasing tension was built between the new techno-economic paradigm and the old socio-institutional structures. And they created major economic crises in both industrial revolutions. In the first one in the 1840s, and of course in the second one in the 1930s. These economic crises were followed by social unrest, even revolutions and wars. Some people associate the Napoleonic Wars and the first and second World Wars to these adjustment crises in these two industrial revolutions. I think we are now in this kind of situation again. We have new key technologies and new organizational arrangements in the world economy, but our institutions in most of the industrial countries still stem from the post-Second World War era. And the tensions between this new techno-economic paradigm and the old socio-institutional paradigm have been growing for a long time. And I think many of the crises that we have seen in recent years are due to this adjustment crisis that we are going through. Now, this situation challenges many of the old ways of doing things and also old ways of framing policies. And that is the reason why we engaged in Sitra into a foresight process on the changing nature of competitiveness. So the first starting point was this historical transformation that also challenges the key determinants of national competitiveness. But we also realized that the Finnish economic discourse was quite narrow. It was quite macro-oriented, short-sighted, and in terms of competitiveness, it tended to focus on cost and price competitiveness. And we thought that it would be good to enrich the national discourse on the economy and also on the different drivers of economic competitiveness. Moreover, the foresight on the economy and the different determinants of competitiveness was quite scattered and dispersed among different organizations. So we thought that it would be a good idea to bring together the different institutions and different experts engaged in this foresight on the different factors shaping economic growth and national competitiveness. And we had this foresight project in 2021 and 2022. We invited 25 experts from the different relevant fields to discuss how competitiveness is changing and how the different determinants of competitiveness is changing and what could be the future key determinants in terms of competitiveness. Now, my own view on this issue comes from my dissertation work, where I laid out this framework of the different sources of national competitiveness and economic growth. I will not go through that. I will only add that this sustainability part on the lower right-hand side of this frame is a new and very important determinant of competitiveness. And that's why I added that to the original framework. But one should emphasize that the different determinants of national competitiveness are interlinked and they shape each other. That's why I have these different arrows in the graph. One could say that the lower part of this frame, resources, technologies, organizational arrangements, markets, international business, and sustainability have been changing already for 2 or even 3 decades. But now the big challenge is to adjust and renew our institutional framework and the public sector and the policy framework. And perhaps there will also be new determinants of competitiveness. So we have to be open to the changing techno-economic environment. Now, this foresight process of ours came up with what we call the competitiveness map for the future. And as you can see, there are 8 factors that the experts wanted to focus on: resilience, renewal of the economy and society, data economy, global networks, attractiveness of the country, business acumen, which relates to new types of leadership and business models, then sustainability, welfare state, competence, and participation. I will focus on 6 of these factors in my presentation because the rest were quite obvious. So let me start with resilience. Now, systems researchers are arguing and have come to the conclusion that there is a delicate balance between the efficiency and the diversity and resilience of complex adaptive systems like the economy or the society or nature. And if you focus too much on efficiency in the system, it tends to become fragile. On the other hand, if you put too much emphasis on building resilience, and diversity in the system, you tend to run out of resources. So you need a delicate balance between these two forces. And I would argue that in recent years, we have focused, especially in the economic policies and business world, we have focused on increasing the efficiency. And part of the reason for the recent crises in the world economy and also in the world in general is due to this fact that we have focused too much on efficiency and we have forgotten about resilience. And Roger Martin, who is one of the leading business gurus, one could say, in the world, he's from University of Toronto, has written a book about the American economy where he makes the same argument, that there's been too much focus on efficiency and the resilience of the economy has suffered. Now, we all know after the recent crisis that resilience is important and we should develop it. But very few of us have had the time to think seriously about how to improve resilience. And we need new type of resilience in today's world, not only the bouncing back type of resilience where you try to come back to the situation that prevailed before the crisis. Rather, we should have resilience that helps us to renew our organizations and our institutions, and also renew them towards more sustainable direction. And that is called transformative resilience. So it's bouncing forward to something which is more sustainable. And I wrote a paper about this topic recently and published that in the Finnish futures magazine Futura. And there are 5 key drivers of transformative resilience. One is the cognitive diversity and also cognitive dissonance amongst decision makers and also public in general. We need that because the future is uncertain and we need to have different ways of thinking about our problems and challenges. Very often in a small country like Finland, there tends to be a certain dominant perspective to issues. And there's no discussion necessarily about the other ways of seeing this situation and then other ways of trying to solve the problem either. We also need collective sense-making and learning processes to make sense of the information that we gather, for example, through foresight and evaluation and benchmarking and research. Because only through collective sense-making and learning processes are our mindsets renewed so that we can see things in a different light. We also need close collaboration among different experts and organizations to really solve the complex problems that we are facing. Single organizations cannot solve these complex problems. We need collaboration. We also need real strategic alternatives because the future is uncertain and we should not have all the eggs in the same basket. So we should develop also in practice piloting alternative ways of doing things so that when the sudden challenge occurs, we have alternatives available. We are not only stuck to the old ways of doing things. And finally, we should have decision-making capacity to reallocate resources and capabilities quickly. And I know that it's not easy, especially in the public sector, to transform resources and people from one part of the public sector to another. But we should have that kind of capacity. Now, moving on to the renewal capacity, I will just focus on the renewal of economic structures, especially the diversification of the economy and upgrading of the economy. After 2008 financial crisis, many countries faced this challenge of old sectors deteriorating and not having new growth sectors to replace the lost work and economic activity. And then many countries turn to think about more strategic policymaking, where the economic structures could be, or the renewal of economic structures and diversification of economic structures could be facilitated by policy. And this is a new way of thinking about economic policymaking, because the traditional comparative advantage approach basically says that you should stick to your knitting, you should stick to your old comparative advantage and not try to enter new sectors of economic activity. However, there's now increasing evidence that if made in a sophisticated way and based on good analysis and policy, countries have been able to diversify their economies. For example, the East Asian countries and even Finland have been able to do this. And the researchers, for example, Ricardo Hausmann and Danny Roderick in Harvard, they're talking about monkey jumps, which means that you should not try to diversify or enter new sectors which are too far from your existing economic strengths and existing sectors. But you can try to enter the adjacent possible and make monkey jumps to new areas, which means basically that you enter something, some new economic area where you can utilize some of the old advantages that you have, but you make systematic effort to build new types of economic activity. Now, also related to renewal is radical innovations. We in Finland are now suffering from the fact that most of our innovations are incremental. And so it would be good to take a serious look at how radical innovations could be fostered. And there is some interesting research, both in science world and also in the business world, where this kind of argument is emerging, that if you can bring together experts from related fields which are not too far from each other, so that the experts will not understand each other, but are far enough so that that fruitful exchange and collaboration can take place. And if you can have these experts engaged in long-term face-to-face communication, then you could have a chance for major discoveries and radical innovations. One example is the Rockefeller University in New York, a small university where they don't have any disciplinary units or boundaries, where all the different researchers from different fields eat lunch together, and every week they have a meeting where each of the researchers have to read 2 papers from their colleagues who are working on other disciplines, and they are called upon randomly to make a summary of those papers. So they are nicely nudged to exchange and to engage in dialogues about their relative fields of expertise, and this is a major source of scientific discoveries. For example, Rockefeller University has produced many Nobel Prizes. Rogers Hollingsworth, who has studied 250 of these scientific breakthroughs, came up with this graph that I'm showing you at the moment. That it tends to be the same situation behind all of these major discoveries. But I think more work should be done on discovering how these radical innovations really can be fostered. Now, moving on to data economy and the digital world, I would just emphasize that some key researchers in this area, for example, Erkko Autio in Imperial College and Kalle Lyytinen in Case Western, have both emphasized that the nature of innovation processes is changing, and that increasingly innovations stem from combinations of different technologies and competencies. So combinatory innovations are becoming more important in the digital world rather than these traditional science-based innovations. If we then look at organizational innovations, we can see that there's been a consistent trend both in the private sector and the public sector towards more varied organizational arrangements. This means that instead of the traditional hierarchy, there are now organizations that have more components and more actors, and they are more open and more networked, and hence they can adapt to this unpredictable environment in a much better way than the old hierarchies. Then I see that I'm running out of time, but I would just emphasize that in today's labor markets, we not only need new, we also need new mindsets. And adult development psychologists have emphasized that many people in today's world are suffering from mindsets which are not anymore adapted to the increasingly complex and uncertain environment. Some American studies have shown that little over 50% of the people don't have the requisite mindset to be adaptive in today's world. And so we should think carefully about how to also support individual development, not only in when people are young, but also during their working life. And this is a new challenge for our systems who are used to thinking about renewing skills. We also have to renew the mindsets. And finally, I would take up a challenge from the innovation policy field. We all used to fostering leading edge innovation and high-tech, high-skill organizations. But now leading economists are arguing that the high-tech, high-skill, high-productivity part of our economy is not diffusing to the rest of the economy, and especially to the small and medium-sized enterprises, and to smaller towns and regions outside of great metropolitan areas. And if we really want to benefit from the new technologies and build productivity, we should also focus on technology and competence transfer to small and medium-sized enterprises and to all regions of our countries. And we have done this in the past, but it has been sort of forgotten in today's innovation policy. And Ireland is an interesting example. They pursue this kind of policy besides fostering the leading edge tech firms. So let me stop here and just leave this last slide for you. And there I suggest some ways of enriching our current discourse about the economy and competitiveness. This is based on the Finnish environment, but I think some of these challenges are similar to your country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Great points, excellent presentation. And I'm really sorry for the time pressure. We still, I would suggest to take 5 more minutes to discuss, and we can later on to balance this with a lunch break. So if you agree to have 5 more minutes for questions. Yeah, I already see a question from the audience, and the microphone will reach you soon.
Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. Martti Randver from the Central Bank of Estonia. I have two questions. First, Finnish economy has been very successful after the Second World War until global financial crisis in 2008-2009. In terms of economic growth, productivity, in the last 15 years, these developments have been much more modest. Is there anything that you can explain this change within the framework of your analysis first? And the second question is that during the last years, one of the most important change in the world economy has been the sort of fragmentation of a global trading system. What we see is that global trade is stagnating. Still there is trade growth between like-minded countries within blocks, but within sort of blocks where countries do not have the same political views, this is clearly declining. Do you see in this framework, in this situation, through your framework, any opportunities for a relatively small country like Finland? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, first, the Finnish situation. We have been studying, of course, this situation very carefully here in Sitra, and one of our new strategic areas of emphasis is economic growth. So we have been thinking about this. There's probably not any single explanation for the poor performance of our economy during the past 15 years, but I think that one of the reasons probably is or relates to these mindsets, because I haven't seen major change in our economic policy discourse in I would say 30 years that I've been following this very closely. There's been some change, but the basic framework of carrying out economic policy discourse in Finland has not changed. And the world around us has changed. So there is a challenge of updating, like you're doing now in Estonia, your view of economic progress and the determinants of competitiveness. We did a comparison. We did a study on economic and competitiveness discourse in Finland compared to the rest of the world, or the advanced economies. And the result was that our discourse is rather narrow, and we don't perhaps involve diverse experts enough in our discourse, and the international discourse on competitiveness, for example, is much richer than what we have in Finland. So the challenge is to renew the way we are discussing about the economy, and it didn't help us that we were quite successful in the turn of the millennium. We had many foreign groups visiting Finland and looking at our tech sector and our educational system, and I think that it took us very long to understand that we are not anymore so good. So that's one reason, and I think if you want to make changes in the policy, you need to change mindsets first, because if you don't change mindsets, there will be no new decisions. So that's the key focus. Now, about world trade, we are living very uncertain era at the moment, and I think also in the future you will have to focus on these same determinants of economic performance that I laid out in my presentation. Of course, situation now is perhaps more difficult than it was before the recent crisis. But still the key determinants of economic performance have not changed. Geopolitics has to be taken more seriously, of course. But then again, whatever the international environment, you have to be competitive, you have to be productive, you have to have high skills, and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you. I would still take use of one more question that is here in the workshop environment, as it comes to the perhaps more concrete proposals. Then, and the question is that you talked about adding resilience, adding versatility, changing mindsets, promoting diversification. Can you provide positive examples of countries where such approaches have been successful and examples of countries where it has not worked?
In terms of diversification and upgrading our economies, I think, of course, the East Asian example is the traditional one offered in this context. But also the Finnish example. I mean, we were an agricultural economy after the Second World War, but we were not satisfied with that, and we tried to upgrade our economy. We made a lot of investments and were successful. And I think many countries which have gone through a similar path could be taken as an example. About the shifting our mindsets, I think the Swedish example of their mind shift network is very interesting. Leading Swedish companies like IKEA, Ericsson, Spotify, and leading universities like Karolinska Institute at Lund University and the Stockholm University, and then many NGOs set up this Mindshift network, which aims at developing methods for supporting individual growth, also in their adulthood, in large scale. And this network is now global, and it has all the key adult developmental psychologists, all the way from Harvard to participating in the network. And I think they are a very good example of the direction that I would hope we could also go in Finland in terms of supporting this development of individual mindsets for the more complex world.
Thanks a lot. This was good, inspiring example. And I also liked the one that you brought in the presentation about the Rockefeller University. So reluctantly, we cannot afford any more questions as our time is up. But thanks so much for talking to us. And I wish you good luck with your further work on still trying to transform the competitiveness discussion in Finland. And if you are successful, I hope this trickles down to Estonia too. As we still...
thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you so much and have a great day. And thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.